Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. We live in a world that constantly tells us to push harder, hustle longer, and keep moving forward no matter what. It's almost as if we're expected to wear exhaustion as a badge of honor, to measure our worth by how much we're doing and how little we're resting. But here's the truth we often ignore: pushing ourselves to the limit in the name of progress isn't the way to success, fulfillment, or peace. Today, I want to talk to you about something we don't often address: the fact that you're pushing too hard. You're chasing the next goal, the next achievement, the next milestone, thinking that they will bring you happiness or a sense of alignment. But in reality, this constant drive might be exactly what's keeping you from finding peace and real progress. It's time to step back and take a breath, because what if, instead of grinding harder, we learn to pause, reflect, and trust that we are enough just as we are, without all the pressure? What if we allowed ourselves to slow down and embrace clarity, knowing that alignment doesn't come through effort, but through presence? Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore how to stop confusing exhaustion with accomplishment, how to free ourselves from the grip of constant pressure, and how we can truly grow without burning out. Let's dive into this journey of understanding why we're pushing too hard and how we can find the balance that leads to the fulfillment we're all seeking. TR 3213, you're chasing progress, not realizing you're actually avoiding peace. And it's subtle, isn't it? It looks like ambition. It sounds like hustle. You tell yourself, I'm just trying to be better. And nobody around you questions it, because we live in a world that praises the overachiever, the go-getter, the one who never stops moving. But if you slow down just enough, and I mean really pause and look under the surface, you'll see what's actually driving you. It's not joy, it's not purpose, it's not love, it's anxiety, it's fear. It's the quiet, gnawing sense that if you stop, you'll lose everything. You're afraid that the moment you rest, you'll fall behind, or worse, that people will see you for who you really are underneath all the doing. So you keep pushing. You tell yourself that you're making progress, but what you're really doing is outrunning stillness. You're using motion as a distraction. You've convinced yourself that being busy means you're valuable. But let me ask you something: valuable to whom, to what, and at what cost? There's no finish line to this hustle, and deep down, you know that. The to-do list never ends. The benchmarks just keep moving. So what are you actually chasing? If you stop measuring your worth by your output, what's left? That's the terrifying question you're too scared to answer. So instead, you keep pushing. You don't sleep, you skip meals, you ignore the voice in your body that says enough, because you don't believe you're enough, not unless you're achieving. Here's the truth most people won't say out loud: it's easier to chase goals than to sit in stillness with yourself. It's easier to pretend that the next milestone will finally fix what's broken than to admit that maybe you're running from your own reflection. You think the next title, the next house, the next 10 pounds, the next win, any of it, will finally make you feel safe. But safety isn't found in the next thing. It's found in presence, and presence is the one thing you're constantly avoiding, because presence means facing what's really going on inside. The real work isn't in pushing harder. The real work is in asking, why am I pushing at all? Who told you you had to be constantly achieving in order to be lovable? Who convinced you that rest is laziness, or that taking a break means you're falling behind? These are beliefs, deep embedded scripts that you've never stopped to question. And here's the thing: as long as you operate from these beliefs, you'll never feel safe. Not when you succeed, not when you reach the goal. Because it was never about the goal, it was about proving something, to others, to yourself, to some version of you that once felt unseen. You've learned to associate discomfort with discipline, but they're not the same. Discomfort can be a sign you're out of alignment, and discipline, real discipline, means knowing when to pause, when to honor your limits, when to say no to the grind and yes to the truth. But if your nervous system is constantly in overdrive, you won't be able to hear that truth. You'll keep interpreting anxiety as motivation, you'll keep pushing, People look at you and think, wow, they've got it all together, but they don't see the 2 spirals, the burnout, the guilt, the pressure, the sense that you can't stop now because if you do, it'll all fall apart. You've built an identity around being unstoppable, and it's killing you slowly, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You're not supposed to be in fight or flight 24/7. You're not supposed to override your own needs in the name of productivity. That's not empowerment, that's trauma. You keep telling yourself that once you get there, then you'll finally rest. Then you'll finally breathe. But have you noticed that there keeps changing? Every time you get close, the goalpost moves. That's not ambition, that's avoidance. You're outsourcing your peace to some imagined future that never arrives. Peace isn't on the other side of more. It's on the other side of letting go. Letting go of who you think you need to be. Letting go of the voice that says you're only valuable when you're producing. Letting go of the lie that you need to do more to be enough. We're told to hustle. We're taught that progress is a straight line that runs through effort, struggle, and constant movement. So when you're not grinding, when you're not pushing, when you're not up before the sun or staying up past midnight, you start to feel like you're falling behind, like you're wasting time. But here's what almost no one tells you. Real growth, the kind that actually changes you from the inside out, often happens in the pause, in the stillness. In the space where there's no to-do list screaming for attention, no urgent deadline, no visible results to show off. It happens when you slow down enough to listen, not to the noise of the world, but to yourself. Think about nature. Trees don't grow all year long. Winter comes and everything slows. On the surface, it looks like nothing's happening, but deep in the roots, things are shifting, strengthening, preparing. We forget we're built the same way, that we're not machines meant to operate at full speed without pause. You need seasons. You need moments where everything in you stops sprinting and just breathes. Because in those quiet moments, clarity rises. In those pauses, you stop reacting and start seeing. Grinding can become a distraction, another way to avoid facing what you really feel, what you really want, or who you really are when no one's watching. When you're constantly busy, you don't have to face the harder questions. Am I even on the right path? Am I doing this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I stop? You avoid the discomfort of not knowing by drowning it in effort. But uncertainty isn't your enemy. It's the beginning of awareness, and awareness, that's where growth begins. The pause is where you unlearn the habits that no longer serve you, where you finally hear the subtle truths your body and mind have been trying to tell you. Where you notice, I'm tired, and instead of pushing through it, you ask why. Where you feel that tension in your chest, and instead of numbing it with productivity, you sit with it long enough to learn what it really means. This is uncomfortable, yes, but it's necessary. You can't change what you're unwilling to confront. We glorify resilience like it's about pushing through pain, but true resilience, it's knowing when to step back, when to say, this isn't sustainable, when to ask for help, when to let go. There's a different kind of strength in softness, a power in presence, and that power doesn't grow in the grind, it grows in reflection. You don't evolve just by doing, you evolve by understanding, and understanding takes space. It's not lazy to pause, it's not weakness, it's wisdom, and yet we resist it, because pausing feels like giving up control. It feels like vulnerability, but maybe that's exactly the point. Maybe you're not supposed to control everything. Maybe you're meant to flow sometimes, to listen, to surrender to something deeper than just the need to prove yourself. Because when you pause, you make room for something greater than effort. You make room for alignment, and alignment will take you further than hustle ever could. Control feels safe, doesn't it? It gives you the illusion that if you can just manage every detail, predict every outcome, anticipate every reaction, then maybe, just maybe, you won't have to feel uncertain, hurt, or vulnerable. That if you grip tight enough, plan hard enough, work relentlessly enough, then nothing will fall apart. But here's the truth most people don't want to admit. That kind of control is rooted in fear, not strength. It's not about power, it's about protection. When you try to control everything, what you're really doing is trying to protect yourself from pain, pain of failure, pain of rejection, pain of being seen and not accepted. So you micromanage, you overanalyze, you don't delegate, you don't trust, and what looks like being on top of things is actually just fear wearing a mask labeled responsibility. You've built a system where control is your shield. But shields don't just keep danger out, they keep connection out too. What are you so afraid will happen if you let go, even a little? That someone will see you're not perfect, that something won't go according to plan, that things might fall apart, or is it deeper, that you'll no longer be needed, that you'll no longer have value if you're not the one holding it all together? The irony is that the more tightly you grip, the more brittle everything becomes. Relationships, health, creativity, peace, nothing thrives under constant pressure, not even you, and the worst part is, forcing control doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it just delays it. You end up living in a constant state of low-level panic, always bracing, always adjusting, always on edge. You're not really in control, you're just exhausted. The people around you might call you a perfectionist or a high achiever, but you know the truth. Deep down, you're afraid of what happens when you stop managing everything and just let things be. Control is seductive. It tells you that if you can just tighten the reins enough, you can prevent pain, but life doesn't work like that. Pain still comes, failure still comes, and joy doesn't arrive through control. It arrives through openness, through trust, through space, but fear doesn't like space. Fear likes boxes, schedules, spreadsheets. Fear likes predictability even when it's suffocating. There's a version of you underneath all the effort, all the striving, all the managing. A version of you that is tired of holding everything up. A version of you that is ready to breathe. But to meet that version, you have to do something scary. You have to loosen your grip. You have to stop fixing, stop forcing, stop micromanaging every outcome. And in that space, yes, uncertainty will rise, but so will truth, so will possibility, so will freedom. Letting go of control isn't giving up, it's allowing. It's trusting that you're still whole even when things are messy. That life can still move forward even when you're not pushing it. That people will still show up even when you're not the one orchestrating every moment. Control might feel safe, but it's a cage, and fear is the warden. You don't need to earn safety through perfection. You don't need to manipulate the world to be worthy of rest. You need to stop using control as a crutch and start facing what's underneath. The tender, raw, human truth that you're scared. And that's okay, but fear doesn't get to run the show anymore. You're tired, but you call it productive. You're drained, but you wear it like a badge of honor. Somewhere along the line, you were taught that if you aren't exhausted, you aren't doing enough. That real success is measured by how burned out you are at the end of the day. So you run yourself into the ground, checking boxes, answering messages, pushing through the fatigue like it's just part of the process. You've convinced yourself that this is what achievement looks like. But deep down, something feels off, because even when you hit your goals, you're not fulfilled, you're just tired. Exhaustion has become your baseline. You wake up with it, you carry it through your day. And when your head hits the pillow at night, it's still there, and yet you still feel like you didn't do enough. That's the trap. You've linked your value to how hard you push, not what you actually accomplish. You've mistaken being busy for being impactful, but motion isn't the same as progress, and burnout isn't a rite of passage. It's a warning sign, one you've gotten really good at ignoring. You're not lazy. That's not the problem. In fact, you're working harder than ever. The issue is that you've built a life that requires you to constantly be on, just to feel okay. You're addicted to the adrenaline, the chaos, the pressure, because it temporarily drowns out the discomfort underneath. The fear of slowing down, the fear of being seen as less, the fear that if you stop, everything will unravel, including you. But ask yourself this: when was the last time you felt energized by your own life? Not just relieved you got through the day, but actually alive in it. When did you last celebrate something without immediately thinking about what's next? That's not ambition. That's survival mode disguised as success. You've been taught to worship effort, but never asked to question whether it's effort in the right direction. You keep pushing not because it's fulfilling, but because you don't know who you'd be if you stopped. Here's the hard truth. Just because something takes everything out of you doesn't mean it's meaningful. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're building something real. You can spend your entire life climbing a ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. And by the time you notice, you're too tired to climb back down. Your nervous system wasn't designed for this. Constant output, constant pressure, no rest, no pause, no joy unless it's earned. That's not sustainable. That's a ticking clock, and if you don't stop to recalibrate, your body will do it for you. Through illness, through breakdown, through burnout that you can't bounce back from in a weekend. Rest isn't a luxury. It's a requirement, but you've been conditioned to see it as weakness. Real accomplishment isn't found in depletion. It's found in clarity, in purpose, in alignment, and none of those things exist in the middle of chaos. You can't access your highest self when you're running on fumes. You can't be creative, connected, or truly present when you're always in recovery mode from your own ambition. But you keep showing up, keep checking boxes, keep performing exhaustion like it's a personality trait, because that's what gets rewarded. But at what cost? What are you missing while you're too busy proving yourself? Who are you neglecting? Your family, your friends, your own soul. Because you think success has to hurt. This idea that it only counts if it costs you everything is a lie, a deeply ingrained lie, and the longer you live by it, the further you drift from the life you actually want. You don't have to be exhausted to be successful. You don't have to be constantly grinding to matter. And you certainly don't have to destroy yourself to prove that you're worthy. You're not a machine. You're not a robot. You're a human being, and human beings need space, need breath, need breaks, not because they're unmotivated, but because they're alive. You've been trying to force your way into alignment like it's something you can wrestle into place. You treat peace like a prize that comes after the pressure, after the grind, after you've ticked every box and proved every point. But real alignment doesn't come from pressure. It comes from presence. It comes when you stop trying to control, manipulate, and force your way forward, and instead start listening to yourself. Not your fear, not your programming, not your checklist, you. Pressure makes you reactive. It makes you chase what's urgent, not what's right. You push harder, think faster, work longer, and all the while, you drift further from yourself, because alignment is quiet, it's subtle, it doesn't yell over the noise. It waits, and if you're too busy pushing, you'll miss it. You'll mistake the chaos for clarity. You'll confuse force with focus. You'll keep climbing, keep achieving, but feel completely disconnected from the life you're living. You tell yourself that once you hit the next milestone, you'll feel it, that sense of yes, that sense of peace, but you don't. You feel relief maybe, or distraction, and then the pressure builds again. Because you didn't find alignment. You just found a temporary escape from your anxiety. You can't force your way into the right path. You have to feel your way into it, and that starts with slowing down, with checking in, with asking, is this pressure actually pointing me toward who I am, or pulling me away from it? The world glorifies pressure, urgency, high-stakes decision-making, but alignment isn't born in crises, it's born in clarity. You don't find it in the rush, you find it in the stillness that you keep avoiding, the stillness that feels unfamiliar, uncomfortable, even unproductive, but that's where your truth lives, that's where your intuition can speak. And it doesn't speak in demands or ultimatums, it speaks in nudges, in quiet knowing, in peace. If you want alignment, you have to stop trying to force it like it's another goal to conquer. You don't earn it by being more stressed than everyone else. You allow it by choosing what feels true, even if it's slower, quieter, or different from what you planned, especially if it's different, because sometimes the pressure you're applying is actually resistance. Resistance to who you've become, resistance to what life is asking of you now, and the more you ignore that, the more disconnected you'll feel. Even when you're doing everything right, you want alignment. Start by releasing the grip. Start by doing less, listening more, trusting that your worth isn't tied to your urgency. You're not behind, you're not failing. You're just caught in a system that told you pressure equals progress. But alignment isn't something you chase, it's something you allow.